Jill, thank you so much for making some time to share your story, share your journey. What I do on this podcast is show agents what's possible. And one of the things I like to document and share is the process, right? We live in an Instagrammable world where everything's polished and edited, um, and no one sees the failures. No one sees the challenges. If I were to pull up your resume, it reads like an agent dream come true. Sold one house year one, sold five houses year two, sold 57, then sold 145, right? It's exponential growth. And so take us to the beginning. Like, how did you end up in this crazy industry? And then there's just a whole bunch of stuff I want to unpack with you.
Thanks for having me. Um, I started in real estate a few years after my husband joined EXP, and my husband had been a commercial broker at a large brokerage here in our area, and he just got asked to come to EXP. And as we jumped into what that entailed, he decided to move over, but he had never done residential real estate before. And as a result, he was just trying to figure out what to do. EXP's commercial division hadn't grown as much at that point. So as he got into it, he got very busy using the tools that EXP had provided. He said, wow, I can do this. I didn't realize how easy this was going to be compared to commercial. Got so busy, he said, hey, can you help me with real estate? And so I thought, well, sure, I'll help you. I can get my license and do some things to kind of help you move along here. And so that's kind of how I entered in, not knowing what was ahead of me. And of course, right when COVID was first starting to hit.
Year one, 100, one house. Year two, five houses. Then like parabolic jump, 10x to 57, and then 3x that, which normally doesn't happen. So the 1 to 5, I think that's what most people experience. So in 2024, if you took the total number of agents at EXP US divided by total transactions reported, non-leases, non-land, so just pure sales, we averaged 5.4 transactions. So in year two, you were statistically average.
Right.
How do you go from statistically average to 10x?
Great question. So when I started here at EXP, there were 5 EXP agents in all of our town, and they were just scrambling to keep things going. Nobody could teach me anything. Nobody had time to teach me anything, and I didn't really know what to do at that point. At the time, our sponsors did a Tuesday sales training call, and they still do it. I would hop on those every Tuesday and hear from agents all over the country talking about how they were handling sales, especially during COVID, all of the workarounds to, different transactions and strategies, et cetera. It was fabulous because I wasn't just listening to what was going on in the four corners of my town with those agents. I was learning what others were doing, which was incredibly empowering. Then I got an EXP world because I thought, well, you know what? I've got time. I might as well spend as much time as I can learning. And I would just take every day, I would just pop into a class. I would scan to see something that I thought might be helpful. And then I would just pop into a class. And so I would say the pivoting moment for me then was I popped into a class on Zillow and Zillow ad dollars. And I believe it was Mitch Robinson at the time that taught it, who had formerly been with Zillow and could come over to EXP. I didn't know what an ad dollar was. I sat there, I thought, oh goodness, this is a whole different world that I didn't even realize. So I thought, well, I can surely get ahead of this. Like, why not go on and invest in these ad dollars? Because who's going to call me to help them buy or sell real estate? I've done, at then a total of 1 to 5 transactions. Why would anybody even want to call me? And do I even really know exactly what I'm doing? That was such a turning point for me. If I take you back, which we can go into that at a different time, I had at the time I owned, and I still do, a large resale business, reselling on eBay and Poshmark, and so I had already learned the play to pay mentality of you set yourself up with a platform and you put your products on that platform, and then you expand who's going to see them and your sales. So for me, the Zillow ad dollars was just kind of like eBay. Okay, let's pay and see what happens. And then they also taught us in that class to go and ask for ad dollar money from lenders. Well, I had sold just a few homes and I thought, okay, that's what they told us to do. So I go knocked on a lender's door and I said, hey, you want to give me some, ad dollars? And he said, okay, sure. So that was fabulous. And here I went, what happened there was it helped me learn my market. Because here I'm getting these random calls and you got to go. You got to pick them up. You got to answer them. You got to go meet the people. You got to go show. Well, I found a white space. And the white space in our community, we are in a large university town. There were so many university parents
And by
calling.
the way, I grew up in Virginia, so I'm very familiar.
Okay, so yes,
I
because you're
applied,
Northern Virginia.
I applied to George Mason, Virginia Tech. I did I was very close to growing up going to college in your hometown.
That's good to know. My husband went to Virginia Tech, so I'm going to say go Hokies. But yeah, there were so many university parents coming in to buy a place to live for their students while their students were in school. And I realized these people were all coming from out of town. They didn't know a realtor. They were relying on a Zillow, realtor.com, or whatever. So as I started talking to those people, I said, well, I got to get to know what this market is so I can take them all around to what's available. So I started what was called a best of tour. That's what I called it. And I said, come to town. I'm going to take you to all the areas that would be a place where you might want to buy townhome communities, condo communities, clusters near the university. And we'll just pop into every place we can. And you just get a feel for what this is like. And then I'll talk you through, some of the details of buying. So as that occurred, I just kept ending up going back to the same development that I thought was priced so low that it was just a no-brainer of a deal. I kept taking people back there and I just kept selling. So in that community of 48 condos, I ended up selling 24 of them and I was not the listing agent.
What was the percentage of total sales in that area?
48 condos and I sold 24 of them.
Is that total condos or just like that sold that year?
That was the total that they built. The total that they built in that community.
Oh,
And
wow.
and
That's
so I
unheard
got
of. That's half.
right. Well, they were so easy to sell, and I had all these people calling me. So the builder then looked at me and he said, "You got all these clients. I don't know where you've got them from, but you're selling all my stuff. So basically, I'm going to just hire you now to do all my new construction because your client pool is massive." Well, he didn't know they came from Zillow, that I was paying all this money to get these people to call me. But so just continued to convert that way. And then I started representing his new construction, and I told him I'd never represented new construction before. He said, I'm going to teach you. So he taught me. I then got in EXP world, started taking classes on new construction and reached out in workplace and talked to some, other new construction specialists. And then from there, it just kind of was a snowball effect. I had a local developer that started watching everything that I was doing. I just became very active on social media, but just as a 55-year-old mom of 4 boys that's just trying to figure all of this out, I just kind of laid it all out there. It's kind of like a reality of me, day. And a developer started watching and called and said, whatever you're doing, you're not doing it like any other brokerage has done new construction developments around here. Whatever you've done, what is this? What is, the inside scoop? And I said, well, I'm going to just be honest. I've learned everything I know from EXP. This is the brokerage. It's cloud-based. It's out-of-the-box thinking. We're a bunch of non-conformers, extreme entrepreneurs. That's kind of how I describe it. And he said, perfect. That's exactly what I am. You're hired. So at that point, he needed a builder to build all of these new developments that he was going to do. So I married him together with the builder that had hired me from all my Zillow ads. And they are now in partnership together. And we are knee deep into our second large development. And he has 10 more to go.
So I want to call out something that you've done that I've encouraged agents for a long time to do. And conceptually, it sounds more overwhelming than you just better describe it than I do sometimes, which is, like, how do I find listings? Create your own inventory, right? You literally found a builder with a developer, paired them together, and you are creating listings that didn't exist, right? Fascinating. I love it. Keep going.
As all of this kind of progressed.
And by the way, this is what, year 3 in the business, right?
Yes, year 3. Yes, year 3. So as this progressed, the first development started, and that was a 103 townhome community. but it was very close to the university. So I knew that was my space. Like I was going to love it. And the developer said, "You do what you need to do to make this work." We did 3 models. We had them fully staffed on the weekends. I got EXP agents to cycle through and staff the models. We fully stocked the fridge with food and drinks for them, for guests, as well as all of the cupboards were full of food. We had Wi-Fi, we had paper, we had printer, we had internet. We said, "Come in and work whenever you want." And we just worked and worked and worked with our Liberty University connections, which then ended up buying a lot of this community we knew for their students. But during that time, I co-founded an off-campus housing Facebook page with another university mom to help generate for the entire area the ability for these students to find off-campus housing, whether it be through purchasing or rentals.
Sorry
Go
to
ahead.
interrupt. I don't know if you know my story, but I started selling parents' houses while I was a student. I did it for myself, and then I sold 11 homes in one summer
Oh, that's
for my
amazing.
fraternity brothers. But do you? So I I I was kind of full stop because I'd sell them the house, then I'd find my fraternity brothers, stick them in there for $500 a room. Are you pairing agents? Are you pairing students and parents so they do the partial rental? How are you doing that? So like if one parent buys a 3 bedroom for their child, do you help them rent out the other 1 or 2 or 3 rooms? How do you do that?
That's a great question. So, as a value
And
add,
only asked by someone who did it.
that's right. So as a value add, anybody who buys with me, I tell them I will help you do as much as I can without being like a property manager and taking on that role. I get so many people contacting me for rentals. My husband and I own 25 and we're full. So I send all of those out to the families that buy from me that are looking for people to fill in their rentals. But also, this Facebook page allows them to go on and post about their rental. And we've got almost 3,000 members. So it's now populating to students who are looking for rentals. And a lot of them do room by room. Yes.
Like you were saying, you built this marketplace for folks, and then
Right.
that's when I interrupted. But I didn't mean to disrupt the flow.
No, that's okay. It what it's helped me do with that page is it well, many reasons. It helped us fill our rental units. We do a lot of student rentals. We have midterm rentals as well, but it also allowed me to kind of become an expert subject knowledge content person for this community on real estate. So a lot of times these parents will see, my post, and I don't do a whole lot of advertising of anything for sale. I'll do maybe once a month something that is definitely related to university parents that want to buy. But then I'm commenting and I'm helping. And if they ping me and say, "Hey, I know you're a realtor, I just need a rental," no problem. Let me make some connections for you. I'm here to help no matter what. But then a lot of them will come back to me when they're looking to buy or to sell. I get a whole lot of parents who bought through another realtor when they entered in, but now they're ready to sell and they call me to help them exit, just because they've seen my name, they've seen my face, my post, and they just already feel comfortable enough that I know the market. So that's really what that has done. It's just been great. But it felt good too because it was helping other people. It wasn't just about me.
That's amazing. So the 57 jumping to 147, it came
Mhm.
from mostly the new construction, the resales, the mix. Tell me.
I would say, well, the new construction, the new community made up about half of those sales. And then I stayed busy because people would call me, and for whatever reason that they weren't a fit for that community that I was representing, I would still move them around to other, communities and get them settled that way. So I would, it was pretty much half and half. It was a crazy year. It's a blur to me last year.
Where do you see Jill in like 3 years from now? Like that's a meteoric rise, and this business is about sustainability. If you hear all my rants on the internet, like um, I got an interesting story. There was a top producer in my market who was just like a perennial beast on all the lists, And my first breakout year, like hundreds of transactions, I took him to breakfast. And I give him shit about this now because we've been friends for a long time. But he told me, he's like, I'm not going to be your friend until you've survived one market cycle. And I'm like, "What?" And he said, look, every year there's a new superstar, depending like new construction, REO, depending on whatever market cycle. He goes, we can be friends after your first pivot. And I remind him of this conversation because I passed him in unit production and everything else and survived a couple market cycles. But it's something that stuck to me. And so what I encourage, you as you're progressing, it's like, okay, what's sustainable? What systems can you put in here? Because it's twofold. One is like perfect market condition um, creates these moments, but then also I preach a lot about sustainability of your energy, right? You don't want to burn out. Like,
Mhm.
what can you do that kind of keeps the people coming back to you without you burning yourself out?
Those are great questions. I feel like a lot of times as realtors, sometimes we don't know, like, okay, what's the next thing we can do to like get us to the next place, and it's all going to depend on so many factors. So the first thing I did when I entered real estate is I hired a transaction coordinator. I did that from day one. I've had her from day one. That does everything, writes my contracts, does everything. Then the next thing I did was I hired somebody to help me do listing, a listing assistant. And then I was like, oh, I'm so crazy. What do I do next? So then I hired a concierge assistant. And that has been my secret weapon. I had no idea what that was going to do for my business, to have somebody that all she does is just love on people and solve problems no matter what they need. She is 5 days a week and she just goes and hits clients as they need things, whether they're past, present, or future. So here I am with this, and I'm thinking, okay, yeah, where do I go next? I'll tell you that I I originally, when I got my license to help my husband, I knew we wanted to buy more real estate. So in 3 to 5 years, our goal would be to have at least $10 million more in real estate ourselves. That would be our goal. We just keep buying and buying and buying. That has really helped our business because we're walking right alongside with a lot of investors. We're doing the same thing they're doing. So I would say it probably a personal goal for my husband and I would to if increased our assets in real estate. I've committed to this developer to move through all of his developments with him and just to solely do them with him. I had been offered several other development opportunities, but I'm a loyal person, as you can tell. I'm loyal to EXP and loyal all around. And so I'm going to really focus on making those as amazing as I possibly can. And then hiring an agent that I can send a lot of my other stuff to. So everything can kind of keep going smoothly.
By the way, that was also very much my career path. And by the way, I'll say this because it's super important. Any agent that does not own real estate is missing out, right? It's
100%.
what we do is not a sellable business. I just actually had a one-on-one call with an independent broker prior to recording this, and I was saying that like the beauty of this business, it creates cash flow that you can then invest in real estate or other businesses, right? I started our lending business, I started our tech company, all with the cash flow from a successful mega team. But I always found that the most powerful thing I could ever say to a home seller when I was sitting in front of them and I said, hey, I would price it at X, right? I would do these renovations to the property. And oh, by the way, I'm also an owner in the same zip code as you with the same buy side supply economics, the same number of competition, the same number of available buyers. And I am listing your home with the same strategy that I would use on my own real estate. And I found that to be one of the most powerful scripts because it's not a script, it's a fact. And a level of like, one thing is if you're a salesperson versus look, I'm an owner operator, I'm an investor, just like the strategies I'm deploying for you are the exact same ones I do with my own money when it's at risk.
It's very valuable because, we've already tested the market. I've got all the stories of what we're doing, how an investor can apply it if it's an investor. All of the horror stories too of things I didn't do right that I could pass along to them and save them from some of the challenges. But really, that was our goal, was to whatever I was able to create in dollars from EXP Realty, it just is going to buy more real estate. We just bought a huge building downtown last week that my husband found out on the golf course in Mexico that it was going to be for sale. He was golfing with some buddies, and here we are. And we bought this great building, and it was such a no brainer. But of course, we just set ourselves up to just keep buying because we feel so impassioned about building our own real estate portfolio as well.
It's amazing. I love that story. One of the quotes I've heard about you is, "I'm just a social worker selling real estate. I
Right.
apply everything I learned in my past life." So share
That's right.
some of that because, again, I think some people will hear your story and they're like, "Well, she's only a couple years ahead of me. How did this happen?"
I feel like anybody can do this that puts their mind to it. I'm a mom of four boys, and I used to be the director of an infant adoption agency. And so, what I was responsible doing was to pair adoptive parents with birth mothers who were pregnant and who selected them to raise their child. I went into homes and I did home studies and I did psychosocial analysis with the parents. I did all of these things and helped pair. So in a sense, I learned a lot about the importance of understanding personalities, understanding people's motivations, what are their pain points, and listening, just listening. So after that kind of ended for me. I started not married and no kids, and ended with married with four kids. And I decided, okay, I got to come up with something else because I got to make some money here. I've got all these kids. I was kind of down on myself because I thought, I went and got this master's degree in social work. I had this, what I perceived was this very fulfilling and rewarding career. And I was just so down on myself. I was like, why didn't I do something else that was going to, make me some money? I had no idea how that was going to parlay into selling real estate. I go out and look for social workers to hire them to be agents. Um, they make amazing realtors. Just we can sit down, we can walk into a house, and we can figure out what the problem is and how it needs to be solved. And so that is just, I didn't realize that was going to be such a superpower. In the end, it was a gift, not kind of a missed opportunity in a career. So I do. Yep. I'm just a social worker selling real estate. That's what I say I
Well,
am.
the interesting part enough is that across markets and brands, some of the most successful realtors are school teachers and
Yes.
nurses and service professionals, bartenders and waiters. And by the way, I was a waiter when I got licensed. I was in college. Um,
So was I. I think you're interviewing yourself as a female.
yeah, and so I think that's the one thing that I want to drive home as much. And when you talk about passion, I say this a lot. I think the people that say follow your passion normally already have money. And I think in life the game is progress, not destination. And so I would say progress over perfection. And the aha that I have found out is if you can become really good at anything, you can actually get passionate about it because winning is fun, helping people is fun. Um, and hopefully if you do it in an industry like ours that actually creates surplus income, you can invest, you can you can grow, you can help others. And then, golfing in Mexico is not a cheap endeavor. You know, spending time with your loved ones and not having to worry about what's on the bill when it comes. Um, and so
That's right.
I'm
That's
extremely
right.
passionate about taking care of my family, right? And so when we go out to dinner, I can just pick up the tab and not worry like however many people are at the table. That again, I think people forget. It's like, look, not every day is going to be great, but it's doing the same things repeatedly with consistency. But you have an amazing business, so congratulations. It's been cool to watch, and quite proud that you're homegrown. Right, you were born into our system, as far as I'm concerned.
Yes, and I will. I'm staying. I'm so appreciative of everyone that sewed into me, and that this is where I learned everything, everything that I know. And I wanted to add something you said. I, I at one of the EXP cons, I meandered into a training, and it was on short term and midterm rentals. And I thought, oh, this is, let me like grab a little bit more information here. So I actually took notes, and I went up and met the presenter. And then I took all these notes back to our whole EXP group here in Lynchburg. And I did a whole lunch and learn on what I had learned. And then I said, we got to figure this out. Like, this is a whole other income stream that as realtors, we're here helping buyers and sellers, but we can help ourselves. So between the agents in our little market with EXP, we've all bought over 60 short-term and midterm rentals in the last 3 years. And we have our own little text group for all of us, sending renters back and forth to each other and solving problems. But what we've always said about EXP is, you all taught us to, yes, to leverage what we're doing, but to make it for ourselves too. And so that was kind of a game changer. You just have to pick up one piece of information from an event, and it can just totally change everything for you. And so that's just another component of, here I was just at an EXP con, and this information, it spoke to me in a way that I was able to then take it back to others. And we're seeing this explosion of wealth for
So
the
talk
agents
talk
here
about that
too.
for a second, because I don't think most people understand the opportunity. Can you talk about that's a bit of a pivot from what we've been talking about, but I think super important, kind of how you approach opportunities.
As we're always looking for ways to invest our money, finding out in this class that I had taken, the massive return on investment that short term and midterm could be. It was just something I hadn't really dived into very much. And between cost segregation studies and bonus depreciation and being in a university town, they talked a lot about university towns and these rentals and how lucrative they could be. I said, we're just gonna figure this out. We are going to learn this. And so we went and talked to a local bank, a local credit union, and we all talked to them, our whole EXP group, and said, this is what we want to do. We may not have the financials that any bank would look at and say, oh, sure, you can buy a bunch more rentals. They said, oh no, we're going to teach you how to do this. We're going to figure it out for you, and we're going to keep these loans in house, and we're going to help y'all through this, because we can see what y'all are doing, and we want to be involved. So we connected with a local lender, and then we all just got in together. We started to have meetings to talk about how we could get this going. What happened was, I ended up selling so many what would be short-term rentals to these university parents, who then converted them not only to buying for their kids, but to buying a place for them to stay at when they visited their kids, but that could be rented in between. They were then coming to me saying, well, can you manage this for us? And I was like, no, I cannot. So I called some clients who were this young couple, and I said, hey, I think you need to start a management company just for these short and midterm rentals, and I'll help you get going, and I'll just funnel you all these people, because again, here's another white space that's needed. Well, they now manage 35 rentals, this couple does, and they started buying their own. I have a place to send all these people to. We still self-manage ours. A lot of the EXP agents still self-manage their properties, because we want to stay engaged. Now, here's the other thing. Is that in our rentals, there's a nice little table tent that says, hey, we're realtors. If you're looking to move to the area, you can just give us a call. We'll help sell you a house. So every single property has our branding, and so we're using it not only to make passive income, to increase our tax advantages, but also to get more real estate contacts.
I love that. And there was such good nuggets on how to start. So let me sum it up for our listeners. One is, you can start anywhere, right? Um,
Yes.
I
Yes.
heard you say multiple ways you led with service, right? You led with value, right? So whether it's getting customers to work with me once upon a time or now leading this company, I tell everybody, give away your best stuff, right? Don't gatekeep, right? So, like, it sounds a lot of the stuff you did was just give, give, give. You joined conversations, you educated, you led with education. Um, and the most important thing that people need to hear listening to this: buy as much real estate as you can in a sustainable fashion. But they're,
Yes.
they're, they're, sadly, I think no one retires from real estate. They just die, right? We've all been in a conversation with a realtor who was probably being condescending, and they were like, "I've been doing this for 50 years." That's not okay. That's actually really sad for me. I think people should live the final season of life how they choose to. Not look, if you love it and you want to have people in your car till the last breath. I know people who do want to do that, but at the same time, it should be optional. And the best way, absolute best, even better than rev share, buy real estate, pay it off, keep it forever. Well, Jill, it was an
100%.
absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. I can't wait to see you continue to grow. And by the way, when I say continue to grow is as an individual, because more is not better.
Thank you.
Bigger is not better. Better is better. So whether 150 is awesome, or you go to 1,000, or you go back down to 50 because your lifestyle accommodates that based on all that amazing real estate you acquired, I'm here for it. And I'm super proud to be in business with you.